Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Rossi, Chairman of the Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission. I would like to call this special meeting to order. Abby, can you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Tim Ziletary? No. Eddie Alberino?
Yep.
Dylan Walter? Michael Rossi?
Here.
Lawrence Edwards?
Here.
Jim Mandel?
Here.
Ellen Dahlgren? No. Mike Florio?
Here.
Vacancy, Susan Marcus? Here. Zach Ford?
Here.
And Bo Clark.
Well, excuse me, Bo Clark, he's upstairs, and we down, well, he actually is next room.
Yeah.
They're bringing him
Once he comes in,
in, full seat.
yeah, we'll get him.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to see, Susan for, Mike Knudsen and, Lawrence for, Ellen. Okay? We have a forum, chair's comments. The first, I have two comments, basically. The first one is, I owe everyone an apology for missing last, week's meeting. I am very sorry about that. I just had a complete flake out and forgot that we weren't on the second Monday of the month. Anyway, the other comment that I wanted to make, is to, give our audience a little bit of an idea of how we're gonna do the public hearing portion of this. Make sure that everybody is familiar with it, although I think everybody here is familiar with it, so maybe I can. But what we will do is, of course, allow the applicant time to present their application, followed by questions from the, commission. And then we'll open it up to the public to speak. Okay, Dylan is here at 7:01. Right here. We'll open it up to the public to speak. And then if, after they talk, anything that they've raised that is an issue, commission will use to, question the applicant. Or, the public should not be asking the applicant things, they should be talking to us and providing us information. And if the public hearing closes, then we can deliberate on it. You can hear our opinion. We try not to give our opinion during the public hearing because we're supposed to be listening for information, not, grandstanding. So that's where we're at. Okay. Item 3, public hearing. I'll go ahead and read the notice. Legal notice of public hearing, the Town of Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a hybrid public hearing on Monday, 7 to 7 p.m. to consider the following. Planning and Zoning Commission 24-16 special exception application to renovate the former Pearson School into a town senior programming and community space of 50 private residential apartments. 75 East Main Street, map 56, block 61, lot 12, applicant BSC Group. At said hearing, all persons will have the right to be heard. The applicant and correspondence are, the applications and correspondence are available for public inspection at, https clintonct.portal.opengov.com, records 20265. I love reading well, baby. Anyone requiring special accommodations to participate in the public meeting should contact the land use office. Michael Rossi, Chairman, Town of Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay. With that, I want to open the public hearing by asking if there is an agent or applicant here to present the plan.
Yes,
Could you please identify yourself for the record?
my name is Francis Baco with BSD Group.
Okay.
Would you like me to come present? I would like to.
I can't hear you, so
Yeah. PowerPoint presentation, like.
yeah, we can make you a host for sure. Okay, and I'd like to know, Bo is here at 7:04. I'd like to see him for the vacancy or
You can see him in Virginia.
Virginia. Okay. There you go.
He's a full seat now.
No, not yet. We're not gonna see it. You might have been approved, but you have to get off.
Even that, yes. Did he sworn in as an alternate?
Oh, it's 4 minutes, no. So that's what I just see.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. This will.
Right, very good. Can you all see my screen? Excellent. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for joining us tonight. My name is Brendan Vaca with BAC Group of Westbury, Connecticut. I also have representatives here from Vinland Partners as well as co-partnership. And I also have a co-presenter this evening, Ms. Susan Odell from Paul E. Bailey Architect. And we are here to present on the Abraham Pearson School adaptive reuse at 75 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut. I have a rather thorough presentation for you this evening. Please, at any time, for questions and do you have any clarification or anything like that. Tonight, we are here to specifically respectfully request the approval of a special exception for the adaptive reuse of the Abraham Pearson School to multifamily housing, municipal space, parking, landscaping, and associated site appurtenances within the EMV district is section 11 associated with the special exception, as well as to respectfully request approval of a coastal site plan in the coastal area management zone, section 18 of the zone regulation. Tonight, I'm going to go through a quick existing site review just to familiarize everyone. Overview of our proposed development. I'm going to talk briefly about the parking. I'm going to explain a little bit more in depth of the low impact development and stormwater design, which is not the typical, standard run of the mill type basin and detention system design. I'm going to talk briefly about the utilities, landscaping, and the lighting, and then unfortunately I don't have an administrator, and Susan will speak briefly about the architecture. As far as the existing site condition, this is north is my row here, so the Pearson School is located right in the center of the property. To the north is Amtrak. To the south, Adam Stanton House is directly to the west. And then to the east is the Holy Advent Church and the Community Gardens. The next slide is going to rotate everything clockwise, so that way, and that's the remainder of the presentation will be in that direction. As far as, again, existing site, the Abraham Pearson School. Turn up my laser pointer. The original Pearson School built in the early 1900s. There were a couple of additions added on to the rear of the facility to the north. There's an existing 60 space parking lot right to the east of the main building. It's oversized in that there's an overabundance of impervious coverage with not very efficient parking. There is a monument tree that we were requested by the town to maintain if at all possible. That is part of our design, and we incorporate that into our design. And then there is currently to the south portion of the site, there is a municipal green that we are planning to maintain use as a municipal green for the future, even after the development. And then again, Holy Advent Church is located directly east of the property. There is currently an easement access into a portion of the property which someone has chosen to honor with the with Holy Advent Church. This access point will remain through completion of the construction. As far as an overview of the proposed development, the dark beige area up here is the existing school. We are adding on a three-story. We're adding on the ordinance portion you see is a three-story addition, which will bring the total residential unit count to 50 units. There is an existing, well, we will convert into a portion of the front of the building to be used by the town as senior center. It's going to be approximately 8,000 square feet of the building ground floor that will be utilized by the town. Blow up my new proposed entrance here. So the main residential entrance will be at the intersection of the new building and the current building, with planted up with nicer landscaping and a more plaza area entrance with a semi-formal drop-off area and substantial handicap parking. To the rear, the red area that you see here is actually an open patio that will be at the level of the former library. The library will be converted into a community room. And this will be basically a secluded area that has some screening behind it, essentially to screen some of the residents specific to the residential portion. There is a bike rack located to the rear of the property that will be a fully covered bike rack so that the bike can use them for a more extended period of time than typical. I previously mentioned that the front portion of the site will remain the blue, as you see here, that will remain as a municipal green portion of the building because this is more associated with public space. We are providing some improvements to that. Currently, there is no access to the monuments on the center of the green or to the gazebo that's out there. So we are providing a 6-foot concrete sidewalk move around with access to monuments and the gazebo. We are also, we were removing one of the connection points from Route 1 to the site, but we are adding an additional loop sidewalk around. What we're trying to do with this is to provide a public space in the form of the municipal area, the municipal green, and then a more private residential field behind that to semi-disconnect that as far as an access from the residents. They would actually exit the entrance here, they would walk along the sidewalk, and then to the east, they would cross a crosswalk across the entrance. And then there's another proposed new sidewalk that get them up to the public way, again, as a way to providing more public space separation from more residential separation. There is this loop drive will provide access, the loop sidewalk into the main public portion of the building, because there will be a direct access down into the senior center space, as well as an additional sidewalk around the side of the building to a proposed new handicap ramp that will provide egress, emergency egress out of the building for the public portion. Parking. As far as parking for the site, because there are 50 units and there are 1-bedroom units, there's a requirement for the state and through the local zoning regulations that there be 1 parking space per unit. So we are guaranteed that we are providing 50 spaces for the residents here. We, in addition to that, coordination with the town, the blue areas that you see there are 10 municipal spaces. They are not explicitly reserved, but they are beyond the quantity, beyond the 50 spaces we're providing for the residences. And then we're also providing 30 spaces for the Holy Advent Church. They do not have any parking associated with their development. They've been utilizing parking on the public space for a number of years. As a result of that, in coordination with the town, we provide these 30 spaces, and I'd like to say that all of the specific space requirements per use have all been designed in accordance with the zoning regulations. The size of the church accommodates 30 spaces, the size of the municipal space accommodates 10 spaces, and I spoke about the 50 spaces associated with the residences. As far as emergency access, we are providing, in addition to the front portion of the building, we are providing what's called a turf reinforcement for the rear fire and utility access to the utility area back here. This is an example of the reinforcement. It's not exactly the product that may be chosen. It's this one that I'm showing you, that it's called 10X turf reinforcement. It gets installed at the same time that they're installing all the new landscaping grass. And essentially, the grass grows up through, it's hardly visible, but it still withstands support, it'll be able to support H25 rating, which is the largest fire apparatus for the town. I contacted the fire department, the Clinton Fire Department, and the town's, I think it's the 971 aerial platform, their largest apparatus. And I ran that through our program. So this is the actual size of the vehicle and the vehicle specifications to ensure that it can get all the way around the parking without any interaction with any of the cars or any of that, as well as get up onto and over around the edge of the building to access the far side of the building. Now onto the low impact development, the stormwater design. Clinton does not have a formalized LID design in their stormwater manual yet, but there have been multiple changes to the Connecticut stormwater quality manual as of 2024. It was just enacted in April. And although there are no specific requirements for it, it puts a much bigger stress on trying to provide more low impact development. Low impact development essentially is a land development strategy that uses natural processes to manage stormwater and protect water quality. Separate from the standard, we have a catch basin and there's pipes connected to it. The pipes go to a detention system in the middle of your property. You have some swirl separators that take out some of your contaminants and then, hold all your water and releases it all. The intent behind this low impact development is to utilize, a lot of times they're called biofiltration rain gardens or something like that. So we are actually proposing the use of a focal point, which is manufactured by Ferguson Stormwater Products. It is proprietary. It does not need to be this, but we have chosen this product in particular because it, unlike some of the other products, this one offers a guarantee that when after the product is installed, there is a specific design that needs to be followed to get that. If you follow all of the requirements, the guarantee that you get will basically be that we guarantee you that this will work for a certain number of time, for a certain number of years. And that guarantee, I can very easily design a biofiltration design. This design, because it comes with a guarantee, if I design it myself, I can't provide a guarantee that what I design is going to work.
Is it required maintenance?
So the maintenance associated with this, well, let me go through. No problem. Unlike usually you do the whole catch basin goes down and there's a large sump in the catch basin that gets a lot of the sediment. Well, instead of using a catch basin, the product that they use is called a rain guardian turret. So it's as the water rushes into it, it looks just like a catch basin, but the difference, it's only about 18 inches deep. So all of the large floatable material, trash and everything basically is caught on the top grade, which is just right there at grade, so it can be cleaned at any time. Because it's only 18 inches deep, a standard landscape crew can basically clean any of the sediment, as this runs through, floatables get caught up on top, and then larger sediment and particles get caught in the screen. The screen would essentially get cleaned out just when the standard landscape crew comes in and does their usual landscaping every spring. This is designed to basically, it can function for longer than a year, but basically it's intended to be cleaned once a year. Once it gets through the pre-treatment device, it gets into the actual focal point itself, which essentially looks just like a garden. Below the surface of the garden, though, is you have 3 inches of hardwood mulch, and that basically filters out the majority of the remaining sediments and contaminants. And then there's 18 inches of this high flow media. This is a proprietary media blend. It's about 80% inorganics, 20% organics, and it's designed to basically self-treat itself. So as contaminants come into it, they kind of work with the contaminants in addition to all of the plantings, because all the plantings are going to be designed by a landscape architect to specifically absorb. A lot of plantings are some of the best at treating some of the heavy metals and the phosphorus and the nitrogen and so on. So that basically is a self-cleaning process. I spoke to them, and again, they provide a guarantee, and they've given me documentation on that. They said that as far as maintenance is concerned, there would be, yes, Mike.
Does that media, get bought at some point and then be changed at all?
So I asked them about that, and they said, at most, they've seen the media have to be changed every 10 years.
Okay.
But they don't have a requirement for that, and they said if standard maintenance is maintained, there is no reason why it could not continue to function indefinitely. The media itself has a 100 inches per hour flow rate, so it's not basically holding stuff back. The 3 inches of mulch is essentially like the filter that's catching most of it, and that would have to get changed just like standard mulch.
Yeah.
Yes,
So, so you said it's a proprietary brand, specific to this company.
yes.
They go out of business. Is this something that is able to be adapted and changed to a current, like a generic storm water management?
Yes, so I say it's proprietary blend, they have manufactured the blend specific, but it's essentially just a type of like granular material with some organic. So it's not proprietary, as in they have manufactured this synthetic product that no one else can have. Whatever their blend design is probably patented to them, however, if they were to go out of business, it's not.
Adaptable to
Exactly.
future.
It's essentially a type of stone material. They developed it and used with the planting to basically self-recycle itself. You know, it continues to feed itself every time, you know, there's a car and all the pollutants come in. Because we call them pollutants, but the plants, that's what they use as their nutrients to grow. So that's basically why it's considered a self-sustaining system. Beneath the media, there's just a bridging stone. Yes.
As part of the application, have you provided a maintenance schedule so that the landscape companies that will be in charge of this know how often to check these things?
Yes, we can provide that. There was one offered by the company. It's not been provided for the application, but can be provided as a condition of the approval.
Thank you.
Sure.
And you have a recharger under,
I'm sorry.
you have a recharger under this.
So on, yes, so you have the bridging stone, and then beneath that is essentially a giant, it's called an R tank. It's essentially one of the milk crate style, like it's called milk crate, because I don't really better way to describe it. Basically, it is a detention system that is manufactured based on, there's a bunch of these plastic cube structures that basically are stacked together. And that is what provides our retention volume. It's about 98% void space versus an arch chamber, which is something, even though the arch chambers are 100% open, those are probably on the 75% void space when you count all of the stone and everything. So you're able to have a much smaller footprint with these detention areas. And they essentially are what is functioning to detain the water for that specific focal point. So I'll switch over to the plan. Explain what's going on. So these, the three areas identified here are the focal points for the property. So essentially, I will draw. Yeah. All right, so if I can hand it to so essentially, this portion of the property here will all drain into this focal point. This portion of the design here will, I'm sorry, this stretches into the existing building, and that will drain into this focal point here, and then the rear portion of the site will drain into this focal. So that's, and what the LID design does is instead of taking all of the drainage system, putting them all through the pipe into one localized area, you individually separated each of those areas into specifically engineered areas. And as a result of that, you can substantially reduce the size of your treatment and all of that because you are only focusing on this amount of area as opposed to the entire site design.
Is this catching all of the roof runoff also?
So, yep, and what's happening, and that's what I'm trying to get to next. My presentation works. The larger size of this. The larger size of the roof, the larger size of this detention tank right here is essentially catching all of the proposed new roof. For the existing roof, because Clinton has one of the highest rated soils that I've seen as an engineer for conservation purposes. And because all of Clinton has septic systems because of the quality of the soil. We have chosen at this point for the existing site to maintain the existing dry wells on site as part of the construction. One of the initial steps in that process will be to unearth all of these dry wells, make sure that they're all functioning. If, based on my examination of the test pits and everything out on site, I see no reason why, especially because this is clean material all coming from the building itself. I see no reason why they would not be continuing to function, and they just maintain them as they are. If they are deteriorated, we always have the option to add additional space onto our tanks to create additional detention and essentially connect the existing building directly into those tanks. That's not the direction that it went in for this, just based on the way that the soils work, but it's definitely something we can look at and would not be substantially expensive to get those in. But I don't believe, based on the quality of the soils out here, that it would be necessary. There was part of the stormwater management report, one of the requirements is to reduce the 2-year storm. You have to reduce the 2-year storm by 50%. It's one of the new requirements of the zoning regulations. We were able to achieve 37%. It's almost impossible to get to the 50%. That's something that I have to take up with the state and the way that they've designed it. But in order to mitigate that, even though we have not necessarily detained the remainder of the site that we're not touching, what we are doing for all of the focal point areas, we are essentially storing 100% that 2-year storm on site to mitigate the fact that we did not achieve the 50% requirement. So essentially, when it's a 2-year storm, then essentially the focal point detention areas and infiltrating the ground, not even going to discharge from the site. As far as the site utilities, presentation works here. Well, I mentioned that we were doing 50 units. The requirement for the state of Connecticut, the Department of Public Health, in order to maintain the size of the system and not end up kicking it up to a deep review Department of Energy and Environmental Protection review, we have to maintain, we can't go any higher than 7,500 gallons per day. Doing the calculation using the technical standards, if we add up the 50 units plus the 8,000 square foot public space that is being utilized for the senior center, that total quantity is below the 7,500 gallons per day, which is essentially what set our unit count at 50. And the septic design for that basically shows that the residential portion shown up here, these are the septic tanks associated with the development. There's 3 tanks. There's 3 just because in order to satisfy the capacity needed for the septic tanks themselves, they should provide 3. And then the 4th tank you see is actually a pump chamber that's going to pump chamber through the red line, which is a force main, over to a fully designed leaching system located over on the north portion of the property. We performed a number of test pits for the area. As I previously stated, it's some of the best soils that I've seen in the state of Connecticut. We had the sanitarian here from the district. She observed 1 pit and left because she said it was fantastic. So we have all that documented in our septic design, which has been submitted to the local health district and has been conveyed to the state, but the state has not finalized their review of it. We are not anticipating there being any concerns. No. I would, yeah.
Do you have where would you reserve
The reserve is located directly in front. It's hard to tell based on my graphics identified here, but the reserve area is located directly in front of this current area. It was hard to get the graphics to work correctly, but if you look at the design plan as part of that package, the reserve area is already fully identified on the sanitary design.
Thank you.
Sure. I would like to note that as part of the request from the town, there is a separate septic tank up here. As far as all of the utilities associated with the development, the public space is being separately provided services. So there is separate electrical, separate I mean, there's the same primary coming in, but there are separate electrical services, there's a separate septic tank and separate generator services for the town portion. We don't have a separate leaching field because the age, leaching field is gonna last, 35, 40 years or something like that. It didn't make sense to have a separate leaching field. There's no-
With the tank capacity.
So tank, I think the largest tank capacity, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that there is only a certain size that you can achieve from the precaster, so to satisfy the total septic requirement was the purpose behind going with 3 tanks. I apologize, I don't know.
In between about 1,500 a year.
I do have the plans, I could. As far as the remaining utilities on the site, we have our primary electric coming off to a new transformer. Again, that transformer is accessible from the fire access that we're putting in around the building, which Eversource will like, we don't like traversing around to try to access their transformer. We are providing natural gas services to 2 separate meters. 1 meter will go to the public space, and we anticipate that there would be the need for gas, the need for the gymnasium and other components there. The gas for the residential is only going to serve a generator only. There is no intent for us to utilize gas as part of the heating or anything associated with the residential portion. The 2 pink rectangles you see are 2 separate generators, again, 1 for the town, 1 for the residential. The town is larger because at this point there has been discussion for this to potentially be an emergency shelter. It has not been formalized, but we have placed the generator on there and always remove it. It's always easier to remove something if it has something. Why we're showing it as part of it.
What size generator do
We don't have the formalized size of that yet. I know that for the residential space, we're just looking at like safety concern for now. Whereas the larger size, probably if it was an emergency shelter, it would be larger, but we don't have numbers at this point, but and as far as domestic fire protection, name right into the front of the building, meter roof, sprinkler system, the that around, and obviously the landscaping doesn't line up exactly with that.
So how are the units gonna be heated?
Mini splits. Mini splits, yeah. I'm sure it's gonna be right. Mini splits at this point.
So with 1 split, 2. Basically,
No, one base with
Per unit.
or 2.
Yeah, but it's split. Denser.
Yeah.
Would run, you could run 2 to 4 things, so.
They can control like.
We'll let them answer that.
Yeah, the tenants pay their own utilities, so each
So they-
apartment unit would have their own separate heat pump, air source heat pump, which is the minimum.
Yeah.
And connected to their own separate condenser.
Okay.
So
Leave
they,
I'm going to talk briefly about the landscaping. I am not a landscape architect, but that's one of the main things I'd like to focus on. Everything identified here in olive green is existing, and we are proposing to maintain as much of that as possible. Our original plan actually showed a new oak tree getting installed somewhere in this front area here. It was requested by the tree warden that get eliminated, as well as question whether we wanted to utilize oak trees in other portions of the site due to the fact that they dropped the acorns. I've spoken to my landscape architect about it. We've maintained a few and we've switched out some for other alternative species as necessary. The dark green you see are all of our proposed plantings. So one of the other questions was we had shown a number of white pine, the tree warden also. The issue in the past with, as they continue to mature, the lower limbs die off and they basically break up. There could be hazards, so we opted to, he requested the use of green giants, a type of variety. We supplemented that with some additional other types of species. All of the species we proposed are all native to Connecticut, native to this area. We don't have any invasive listed, and that those modifications design will get incorporated into the final land record set. The only other comment, yes,
This question is not to do with landscaping, but while this screen is up there, I want to go back in the beginning when you mentioned the sidewalks. Was there any consideration for, instead of having the residents, which are going to be seniors, cross the entrance and exit and then come down south, having that sidewalk on the eastern side as opposed to the western, the western side as opposed to the eastern side?
access up, is that what you're saying? Up here is what you're saying?
No.
No, down below, where you go on that the residents would come down in front of the municipal building, then take a left and cross where the cross section is.
So down by the
Keep coming.
church,
Keep coming.
right down.
And instead of coming across the entrance and exit.
Yep.
Just shooting to the south right there.
Yes, there was discussion of that, and what we were, the thought behind the purposes of putting that all the way to the eastern edge is, again, as I had mentioned, the providing like the public versus private separation. So the thought behind, because I had originally placed it up where you were requesting. The thought behind that is because this is being utilized as like the public space, there will be the general tendency, well, not the general tendency, but there could be a higher tendency for the general public to walk up and into. Now, I'm not saying that this is not, that no one can walk up in there, but it's to provide a more, just the thought behind a public space separated from a more private residential space, which was the purposes for doing that. It's also the purpose for why we eliminated the
Right.
connection right here. So that was our thought behind it.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question about parking?
Sure.
So with the 50 dedicated for the residents, 30 for the church, and the 10, and that all this also includes handicap parking within that number.
That is correct.
The 30 for the church, is there any, is that dedicated so that is there any parking for guests? Or in the event with the senior center that more than 8 people, including people who may be working there, need parking spaces, will they also have access to the church?
So I ran the parking calculation for the 50 units plus the senior center, plus the church through the Institute of Transportation Engineers parking standards manual. So basically it takes documentation from a number of years worth of these specific uses, residences, churches, and compiles essentially a database that says, this was what was built, and this is actually what was parked there for anywhere from 15 to 25 years. And it basically said, what is the size? What are the number of units? What is the size of the commercial space? What is the size of the capacity of the church for the number of parking? And it basically says, given these 15 to 20 years, this is the total that we've actually seen the average to be. I ran the calculation, and for the usual, like Monday through Friday timeframe, we were probably about 20 spaces empty. For the Saturday, we get to be about 10 because obviously more people are visiting. And then during Sunday, it was probably the highest, and it was close to our 90. Now, I understand, I always get the question about the visitors and so on. There is always a possibility that there could be, an event happening for the senior center, all of the people home, and there being church taking place. That's always possible, but the likelihood of that versus adding substantially more impervious space in order to allow for additional parking in that very specific case, we did not see it justifiable. The use of the church happens very specific times. Yes, I do recognize that there are, they have, other meetings and stuff there during the week, but we anticipate that mostly it will be more of a rotating schedule.
And again, is it just earmarked for the church so that if there are conflicting events, does the church have priority over the senior center? In that event, the church, let's say, for instance, has an event on a Saturday. Do they still have exclusive access to all of those parking spaces?
We have not deeded any exclusive access to any of the parking. And instead of that, the accurate number for each specific use. So I don't believe it was ever anticipated that we would have deeded or any of these.
The programming question versus what's required of the zone. And so that usually is decided at the point where we start discussing specific property management components. So I don't think we.
Right now,
I need you to identify. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, right now, the Putnam Town seniors. spend time at the annex. You guys know what that is, right? That's, used to be the old PD, was all we done. Well, right now. They spend a lot of time there. And
there's, town annex, the building for.
activities. How many people? If you look at this. Here. So if these activities move to the Pearson School for meetings in the old art room or the gymnasium. There's not gonna be enough spaces to accommodate those people. And that's. You can, put the annex yourself, and look at. So the seniors are going there now. Where are they gonna go? You have a shuttle bus,
They have the 10 spots.
they said, no.
And two of them are handicap spots, those 10.
So,
Church activities.
no, this is a good,
Please, we shouldn't be deliberating, we should be.
I'm not deliberating, I'm asking a question about the parking for Susan, what about the senior parking. And then right now, the annex, there's quite a few cars that they are over, you look yourself tomorrow, we'll look tomorrow. And you'll see, or you can go up tomorrow, the annex. And then you'll see that those people that are there now, if there's gonna be moved over to the senior center, they're gonna be, we accommodate those people.
Hi, I'm Terry Lotus Mitchell with Sealant Partners. We're the co-developer for the project alongside Nicole. So as Carl mentioned, it really gets down to the timing of the programming, and you bring up a very important point that it's critical that the senior center programming, especially their popular events, really can't happen at the same time as just prime events. So it's
Don't do the church here, just forget the church, I'm talking about the annex, is right, if you walk up the building, you see it.
Eddie, what I believe you're saying, let me, is that if you count the 10 spaces plus the 30 for the church, you have enough space for the senior center, as long as they aren't both being active at the same time. Points.
I was gonna point the same.
Okay, so he's not saying that the 10 is enough by itself, it's a matter of when things are being done.
I see it as there's 90 spaces, there's 9 handicap spaces. I think, the church isn't being used, probably 6 hours out of the week, the church is being utilized. Space, 2 hours or 4 hours on Sunday, maybe,
Go ahead, Bill.
Abby, I have a question for you. Do you happen to know if there's any type of staffing at the senior center, like from the hours of 9 to 5 or something like that?
So the programming is still being worked out. Certainly, that has to do with the senior services director and her hours and how that works over time. So the hours are remaining to be determined. So right now, the town is reserved the space, the ability to provide additional programming to what is currently available for our student community. Whether that is just Christina or Christina and, an assistant, or there's separate folks coming in to provide special classes, that kind of stuff. All of those things are on the table, but the exact operating hours, are to be determined.
All right.
But she's very aware, we've had multiple conversations about the need that when the time comes for programming, that those uses will need to be balanced, and then currently my understanding is that there's not significant senior programming on Sundays. And that if it were, there's still the opportunity to hold senior programming, perhaps not in this facility, but at other locations as well, the town hall is open, so there's ways to do this to balance the needs of the senior community and take full advantage of the space without conflicting with the parking issue.
That,
Just on the topic of parking, I was wondering if there's any dedicated charging spaces or anything like that.
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. You see, it's hard to visualize here, this, the three little dots that you identify here. I should have called them out on the utility plan. Those are EV charging spaces, and they are in accordance with the requirements of the latest legislation for the number of spaces associated with this 10%.
That's 6 spaces.
Yes, there will be two, well, yes, there are 6 spaces identified for EV charging.
Is that backlot resident only then, or? how that goes?
They are, again, we have not specifically yet. We are not specifically, we did coordinate with Clinton. They did not specifically have any desire, because I did ask if they want any out front for the municipal portion. They did not specifically request any. They didn't, I think we have some at the town hall, I believe. I can't remember exactly, but I also don't know if SHPOs allow them. Do they need the, I can't remember. But
No, they're usually not too involved with this.
Okay.
Um,
Be that as it may, we did place them in the back, but it was not intended for them to be, exclusive.
Oh, and this may also be for Abby, in the event that there would be conflicting, events, is it possible that runoff parking for the staff of the senior center could be parking at the town hall?
Absolutely, I mean, we're not far, and so it's certainly reasonable that the town staff or, folks who are more mobile, who are attending programs can absolutely park here.
When you said that, that makes a lot of sense. They
Yeah.
just use the town hall.
Exactly.
I apologize if my graphics made it seem like they were dedicated for them, and the intent behind it was providing adequate.
We do
space.
it.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
I was just asking.
Sorry.
thank you. No, sure.
No problem. As far as the lighting for the site. That's work. So all of the stars that you see identified here are basically the front light poles that are in front of the building and in accordance with, I would say that they're in accordance with SHPO requirements, but one of the desires of the town is that they did want to see the town center lighting identified in the historic components of Pearson School. So the front portions of the property are going to have decorative, they are going to be all LED dark sky compliant lighting, but they're going to be architectural fixtures for the front portions of the building. The parking lot itself will have 12-foot high in accordance with the regulations. Lantern type fixtures. This actual fixture is specifically the one that are utilized at Clinton Center. And then for the rear portion of the property to provide wider visibility and so on, because it is behind the building and not visible from the street, we are utilizing standard LED overheads, but that is just because it provides a much easier throw pattern. The remainder of the building is all having essentially wall lighting. The only thing I'll mention is that we do not have any overthrow of the property, even along the western edge, which is quite close, non-conforming to the adjacent property. And we specifically did that to try to limit there being any overthrow over the property. Are there any other questions on that site-specific portion? What turn it to Susan or?
Just one clarification, and you probably said it, I missed it. The court, community room that you mentioned in the back, that is community room for the residents, not for the public.
That is correct.
Okay, just to make sure I understood. So that's it.
Were you talking about utilities, are you looking at sort of like solar fixtures for generation of power and that?
I would have referred to the development team on that one. I did not specifically look at that myself, but I also, you know, that would be a mechanical, electrical question, but I don't know if it's being, investigated as part of the team.
Well, so we don't normally do standalone solar fixtures because they have those, I believe. That look like so, but we do typically in our projects have PV component, which is usually on the roof. This one has. Chico doesn't want to see any PV panels, so we're limited as to where. So, found that, you know.
Thank you very much. Thank you. To Susan for the.
And I apologize, I'm gonna delve into your territory. The annex on Google Maps. And I count about 35 spaces behind the annex. That is shared also with the Chamber of Commerce that's back there.
Chamber of Commerce is the building next door.
So. The annex that only has the spaces directly behind.
Yeah, it goes along the back. Along the back. Row, and then you go along the river. Big park.
So that's 23 spaces behind the annex.
Yes, again, if we have the ability to, again, the planning is able to be coordinated.
When they have, you guys come up with a grant, they're just using town hall.
Council President, please.
So again, for the record, Susan Odell, the Paul Bailey architect, I am an architect and senior associate, firm. This is right.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, so to explain this first slide, this is a pay stub, it's not a full rendering, because as you see, it's the existing site, not the improved site. So, the importance of this, though, is to show the perspective, the correct perspective view of the existing historic building to the new addition. As you can see from the street view, it is, the addition is significantly back from the school. The reason that's important is because architectural drawings kind of slam them all together. So when you look at the next. Yeah, so when you look at this elevation, it's kind of alarming, because that addition is suddenly pulled itself all the way up to the front next to the, in appearance to the existing school building. So just to back up 1 second, we have a historic school building consisting of 3 parts over time, the original 1930s era school building, with a 1950s era addition, and then a circa 2000 library addition in the very back. This project will be seeking historic tax credits at both the state and national level, and they consider both the 1930s era portion and the 1950s era portion as historic. Their requirements are very strict, so we will be maintaining those portions of the building largely as you see them now, just improving, repairing where needed. We will be putting in new windows, but they have to match the original windows that were in the building. So you can expect to see at the end of the day, the building largely as you see it now, just freshened up, cleaned up. We're keeping the 2000 era library addition in the back. That will become our community room. The only portion that we're demolishing is just the narrow area between the 2000 and the 1950s edition that contained that elevator. We looked at reusing the elevator shaft, but it just wasn't realistic. So we're demoing right in that area, a new circulation to new in that area. So then to get back to the facades that you see here, the goal of the addition is to harmonize with the existing historic school building. And we achieved that goal in the use of the materials, brick and the massing of the building. We want to keep that addition though looking complete in its own right. Accomplish that through the grouping and the design, windows and doors and the detail of that building. Just showing you the two sides of the building, so the proposed east at the top, that's the side of the school that you've seen for so long facing the parking lot. And then down at the right hand end of the mirror image is down at the bottom because that's the west side of the building. It's a little bit harder to see from the street, so it's not as familiar to everyone. But you can see on the left-hand side, our addition with the little one-story library. And then just the front and back of the addition itself, that's a section cut through the existing school building on the top. And the south side of the front of our addition at the top and the rear of the addition at the back. Inside of that rear view, you can see again. Move on to the floor plans. I threw some color on them to try to make them easier to differentiate. The blue. This is the first floor plan. The blue area, which includes the existing gymnasium, will become the senior center. As Frank mentioned, and it will be largely kept intact and certain elements restored to their existing story, such as the doors into the gym and the windows. We are adding a handicap chair lift vestibule because when you enter the front door, it's a half like steps down to the floor. So that chair lift, which is that square thing below the stairs in that vestibule, would be for wheelchair bound seniors. We also are keeping the existing ramp that comes out of the gym. You can see up on the upper right-hand side of the blue area. That's an existing ramp out of the gym. So that will function for egress, emergency egress, but also in case that the chairlift is not functioning. So the green areas are the residential circulation and common areas. The upper right-hand corner is the old library, which will be our new common room, with two offices to the left, immediate left of that. And the purple area is the patio outside the common room, which is for the residents' use. That common room and offices is about 3,000 square feet total. Just to break down the square feet. Overall, the existing building is about 53,000 square feet. The addition will be about 23,500 square feet for a total of 76,500. Of that, senior center is about 8,000, which leaves 68,500 for the residential.
Wow.
So there will be 50 units in the complex when it's complete. 30 of them will be in the existing school building and 20 in the new addition. It's a mix of one bedrooms and studios. The studios are about 500 to 600 square feet average, and the bedrooms range from 650 to 850 average. Because those these units, due to the SHPO restrictions, we are utilizing the classroom. Classroom basically becomes a unit with very few exceptions. So there's a rate that forced this range of square footages that you're hearing. The orange are the studios, and on each floor there's 2 studios, and the yellow are the 1 bedrooms, and on the first floor there are 12 1 bedrooms. The green, Ooh, I have to draw, don't do that. Well, anyway, can you see that? You can see the pencil?
Yes.
Okay. So these are the 2 new elevators that we're putting in, that they're in the location, approximate location of the existing elevator. Now, the entrance that Frank mentioned to the residential portion is here in the corner. You enter this lobby, you've got mail and package area here. You've got your elevators here. There will be a difference, in the floor elevations because the first floor of the existing school is actually in the ground somewhat. For accessibility purposes, we want to keep our first floor of the addition level. So there's a half flight of steps down to the first floor of the school. These elevators will allow for accessibility between both of those floors. So you can enter an elevator here and exit the half level down here. Otherwise, we have required egress in our addition. We have trash rooms both in the addition and in the existing school. The existing school has plenty of egress, stairs here. That will be, there's a laundry room here. A unisex restroom here, which is for the office space, the community space. And then just, you see the units laid out. This floor. So second floor, the blue is the senior center, it's the two-story gym that you're looking at. So that's kind of open air that you're looking at the senior center. And then green again is the circulation, yellow is the one bedrooms, and orange are the two studios. And the same thing basically on the third floor, minus the senior center two-story portion. You're looking at the roof of the senior center. But essentially the same layout on the third. So 50 units, there's a total of 6 studio apartments, 44 one bedrooms. And they might cover all of the numbers.
Housekeeping closets or offices.
There is. Can you see the person?
Yes.
Here's a large gender. And then, that exists on each floor. Let's say it stacks on each floor.
Thank you. That concludes your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, then, I would like to allow anybody from the commission that has additional questions to, tell me and I'll let them.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Are there any municipal offices in this building at all?
Only as related to the senior center. So there is one office space.
It won't be like a nursing office or anything like that.
No, there's no, the offices in the residential portion are for management. There's no supportive.
Go ahead.
And just to clarify, access to the senior center is either down a half of the steps or by the lift for wheelchairs. And then thirdly, for a ramp, it's around the back of the building.
Now, I thought the ramp was primarily as an emergency egress. Is that correct?
It is, but could be utilized, and there was some concern when we met with the town in the case that the chairlift is not operating for whatever reason. It could be utilized.
Thank you.
The goal is to have folks come in through the main door where staff can see folks coming in, so if anybody has an issue, we know when folks are utilizing that rear space.
Who's your staff?
So Christina Abenbora is the senior services manager, and then as volunteers or other contract folks come in, and over time, the body of the staffing of the senior center may evolve, but that's who's with us for now.
Is it run like Glen Haven, something like that?
I'm not particularly familiar with Glen Haven.
159 Glen Road, we have a senior, all seniors.
Correct, right, but the residential portion and that is different from.
I know, it's a staff.
So during senior center hours, the senior center would be staffed. That's my understanding, and that's the intent of the town at that time, but the final programming for that senior center phase is an evolving conversation. It'll involve, that department, the town manager, the town council, that sort of component will be evolving over time.
The ramp goes to the senior center, or does it go to the residential?
The ramp is off the side of the existing gymnasium, so that it's senior center. And actually, the front door, is 2 steps up currently, so there'll be a small ramp up as well.
You know, about the handicap ramp, 2 elevators. If there's 2 elevators and you have a generator. That's, in my opinion, okay.
Our housing agency requires 2 elevators for senior housing in the case that one is down.
I think maybe in the beginning, you don't.
Yeah, we've had
Yeah,
I just want to clarify,
Go ahead.
Andrea, correct me if I'm Zealand, the ramp is only going to be accessible from the community to the senior center. If you were elevated for using the residential side. It's just mentioned, just 2 stairs.
Yeah, you would use the elevator if you're a resident, you would use the elevator to navigate the 2 floors.
Sheena, we're talking about all this, in snow and all that, who maintains the ramps and all that? Is it town?
So there will be a negotiated maintenance agreement for stuff. Generally speaking, the town facilities will be maintained by the town and the private facilities will be maintained by the developers.
So we pick up the tabs for plowing and salting and shoveling.
So for any of the areas that are going to be managed and owned by the town, in this case, obviously the green is staying, owned by the town, that would be something that the town would manage. And then anything that's exclusively residential would be managed.
So you guys are gonna take care of your parking, your driveway,
Yeah.
and we'll check your.
Yeah.
Our sidewalks, our.
Well, so I think the parking is probably something that we will, to having the point, have to finalize in more detail, just because it doesn't really make sense to have someone come and plow 10 spaces. But
No, I'm just saying, the parking lot for you guys, in the rates,
yeah,
should be covered. But
so we don't.
That's not part of
I'm just saying, we're talking about the maintenance and everything, so that's part of it, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think everybody's got a pretty good deal here, so we have to maintain, we have not snow and ice, so people want to get home,
I have one more question.
and it should be taken care of.
Go ahead, Larry.
The library patio, is that also an access for handicap to get in and out of the building?
The patio, no, not in and out of the building. There's steps up from the patio to grade because that library floor is at that same first floor, which is down low grade.
Well,
So-
there's steps going to
The steps are going down from grade down to the patio, but the access is through the community room to the patio. That's the accessible route to that patio.
So, yeah, so it's
So
still,
you'd already be down to access the back.
Correct. Right, you would go through the community room. It's all level.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
but it's not access to the outside.
It's not a ramp to it.
it would be equitable in that, users of the community room. direct access, flush access to the patio itself, they would not be able to exit. I think a wheelchair user would not exit the patio up to grade.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I just want to clear an confusion that I heard from you over there. The senior center, though, you can access the rest of the building from the senior center, right? No, they're 2 separate. Okay.
So who, I'm not sure, to kick the dead horse, who's gonna negotiate this maintenance would be with the snow, the ice, the ramps.
So final details on the programming of spaces and how those spaces will be maintained. So the fundamental, this for the purpose of this commission, the spaces will be maintained because they have to be. In terms of who contracts with who pays for what portions, whether there's common contractors, town services doing some things, all of those will be worked out in the programming piece. That is something that goes through the town manager and town council. So that will happen through those negotiation pieces for the sort of ownership portion and the lease back portion of the building. So that's part of the next series of conversations. This is truly, does the site meet the minimum requirements in order to go forward?
I think
So-
they did a wonderful job, just, couple keys up before, couple ice. I mean, it's-
And just to clarify, this is the very beginning of our process as developers.
Okay,
If we feel like it's further
I
down,
like it.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think you guys did a great job.
glad to hear. I just mean that there's still lots of things that need to be done on
Oh, I'm sure.
multiple related to this.
Okay,
Okay.
at this time, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak or anything to say? Okay, hearing none. Any final questions from the
No.
commission?
So,
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
okay,
now, second.
so moved, second, okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Nay?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
ayes?
Yeah.
Unanimous. Good. Okay, this time then we can move on to the next thing on the agenda, for that close my computer, so I didn't see it. So we're on to. Thank you very much. And if I would ask, that your presentation may be downloaded onto the, okay? Okay. Item 4 is old business. The first one is, the, special exception for 75 East Main Street. Application to renovate former Pearson School into a town senior programming community space and 50 private residential apartments. This is now time for us to discuss. And, I'll just open it up. I think that, we've really, this is a very well designed, in my view, it's a very well designed, plan. I particularly, am happy with the not landscaping, the, stormwater. That design really impressed me. I have to admit that I very happy to see that. The, ability to do that is very good. I know that you're asking for a slight increase in ground coverage. And I agree with the, document from Abby that, given the, strength of your stormwater, system, I think that slight, change in, coverage is not, a problem.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah, we agree.
Now, anybody else want to talk? Go ahead.
Just to further your point, Mike, it should be noted too, that this is coming under the auspices of the 830G, so they don't have to maintain our ground coverage minimums. So, it is the benefit from the point of view of, less per your, ground management, but also they don't have to comply with our regulations for ground.
Exactly, and then we're out of the way.
I think it was a wonderful presentation, very detailed and very good presentation.
Very professional.
Any, go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna say is, if everyone in the union, not a lot of spaces, but there's a town hall and
Yes.
the annex, and people who work there could park over here. And I know some people have mobility issues, but seems to be a pretty well-balanced plan. I guess not everyone.
They have special transportation.
Yeah.
Thank you. At this time, if, would anybody be interested in, making a
I'd like
motion?
to make a motion to approve PZC 24-16. Next one, you know,
Yeah. What about the findings that Abby noted and
the findings that I'll be noting, but the extended ground coverage.
and then there were also conditions in that.
Right, I think we wanted to add that the applicant provide a maintenance schedule for the groundwater detention system.
In addition to the conditions that Abby had.
Right. I think I would modify, condition G to state the property owner shall provide copies of stormwater maintenance schedule and reports to the zoning enforcement officer, so that we receive when they do the maintenance. We know what the schedule is, but we also know when maintenance is occurred.
The only thing that we may want to consider adding to that also is that I've seen other applications where the owner of the property does not maintain that scheduled maintenance, that the town can therefore hire it out and bill the. We want to include clause of that nature.
I think what I would probably suggest is, because we don't have sort of a ready bucket of money to go and do that would come through an enforcement proceeding, if it ever happened to get to that point, that it would be out of compliance with the terms of the special exception, and therefore the zoning enforcement officer would have the ability to enforce if we got to that point, and then we would get those monies and directives to go onto the property to do those activities through that kind of enforcement activity. And that would be for any, any project in.
Sure.
Yeah.
That sounds, sure.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. I got both.
No, I think there is.
Oh, Larry, okay. So we have the motion on the floor. Any further discussion on that one?
No.
All those in favor? Opposed? Anything, motion carried beautifully. Thank you. Now we have a second, item, which is the coastal site plan application. I don't think, we need to have a presentation for this, because you covered all the relevant items in the, presentation. What I would entertain a motion to approve this, given the, conditions noted in Abby's, note to it. I know they're pretty standard, the condition that, or the statement that the project incorporates reasonable measures. And, it's consistent with, Connecticut general plan.
So moved.
Second was Mike, okay? Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any motion carries. Thank you, everyone. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So.
Okay, give me all in favor?
Nice job, guys, I gotta say. The presentation, I have been on this for a long time.
Oh.
You heard that.